해요. 그래서 그런 것들을 보면 나도 이런 거를 하고 싶다. 되게 좋은 거를 하고 싶다라는 생각이 드는 것 같아요. 그냥 이것저것 보는 것 같아요. 이것저것 보는 것 같고 뭐 공부를 하는 것 같지는 않은데 길을 가다가 이제 걷다 보면 궁금해질 때가 있는 것 같아요. 여기는 그래도 느낌이 뭔가 다른 것 같은데? 이런 생각이 들면 산책을 계속 반복적으로 하다가 나중에 이런 데였구나 라고 생각하고 그리고 또 거길 또 가보고 같은 데를 여러 번 가보면서 반복적으로 가보는 거를 좀 좋아하는 것 같아요. 그냥 그 장소에 대해서 오해하게 되는 것들? 그런 게 쌓이면 좀 쓰고 싶다고 생각하게 되는 것 같아요. 물론 이제 어디서든 책이라는 걸 냈을 때 반응이라는 거는 쓴 사람이 직접적으로 느끼기는 상대적으로 힘든 것 같기는 해요. 그리고 일단 읽는데 시간이 걸리니까 그런 것 같기도 하고 그리고 또 코로나 때문이어서 그냥 뭐 외부로 찾아보고 이런 반응이 있구나 정도를 아는 건데 그렇지만 되게 재밌었던 것 같아요. 신기했고 일단 책이 나오기 전에 그 출판사분들이나 아니면 역자분들이랑 계속 이야기를 주고받는 것도 되게 재밌었고 내가 한국어로 쓴 소설을 일본어로 번역하실 때 이런 점들을 생각을 하시는구나 이런 것들이 되게 그리고 모르겠네요. 이게 단편이 영어로 번역되면 얼마나 많은 분들이 보실지는 모르겠지만 영미권 독자분들 만나는 기분이라기보다는 겨울이 힘든 분들이 읽고 약간의 좀 편한 시간을 가지면 좋겠다 이런 마음인 것 같아요. 아무래도 추우면은 몸의 밸런스 같은 것도 많이 깨지고 이러니까 그런 걸 좀 예민하게 느끼는 분들이 읽으면 좋겠다 라는 생각이 좀 있어요. 질문이 되게 어려웠어요. 사실 계속 생각을 했는데 대답을 할 수는 있을 것 같은데 그런 것 같아요. 독자로서 내가 좋아하는 책들이 있고 재밌다고 생각하는 소설들이 있고 쓰는 사람으로서의 나는 계속 그걸 의식하면서 이런 걸 쓰고 싶어, 이런 걸 써야겠다, 되게 좋은 걸 하고 싶다 이런 생각을 많이 하는데 이런 것과 실제 요즘 한국 소설들, 한국 문학들이 이전과 비교해서 더 많이 번역되는 거를 뭐 어떤 식으로 연결해서 말을 해야 될지는 잘 모르겠어요. 각자 뭔가를 열심히 해서 그런 걸 수도 있고 또 번역원이나 뭐 기타 어떤 에이전시들이나 어떤 이런 거를 연결해 줄 수 있는 것들의 역할도 있을 수 있고 혹은 모든 것이 이전과 똑같은데 어떻게 하다 보니 잘 된 걸 수도 있고 그냥 여러 가지가 있을 수 있을 것 같은데 제가 가까이 느낄 수 있는 제가 좀 몰두할 수 있는 지점에 대해서 말하자면 그냥 그런 것 같아요. 잘하고 싶다라기보단 좋은 걸 하고 싶다고 생각하는 거.
In our headlines on this Friday, May 2nd, here in South Korea. Deputy Prime Minister for Social Affairs and Education Minister Lee Joo-ho takes on the role of acting president, pledging to place priority on public livelihoods and national security. Also, on the local front, former acting President Prime Minister Han Duck-soo declares his intentions to join the presidential race following his resignation a day earlier. Meanwhile, findings by Statistics Korea show consumer prices rose 2.1% in April on year, hovering within the 2% range for the fourth month in a row. We start with some dramatic developments on the political front overnight, with the post of acting president going to Deputy Prime Minister for Social Affairs Lee Joo-ho. Our senior correspondent Oh Seong covers the events thus far.
Stabilizing governance amid a political storm. South Korea's new acting president Lee Joo-ho took charge of the nation Friday, prioritizing people's livelihoods and national security as his first agenda. Deputy Prime Minister for Social Affairs Lee Joo-ho, as of midnight, became the country's unprecedented third interim leader in the aftermath of former President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment. This came after two back-to-back resignations on Thursday, as acting president and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo stepped down to run in the June 3rd presidential election, and his next in line, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok, quit within hours under the threat of impeachment by the National Assembly. Lee's first course of action, convening the National Security Council to ensure livelihoods and public safety remain intact, and for watertight readiness against potential provocations from North Korea.
Ensuring national security and the lives and safety of the people is the government's most fundamental duty. There must not be even the slightest gap in any area, whether in diplomacy, security, defense, or economic security.
The acting president also presided over a State Council meeting to approve the 13.8 trillion won, or $9.6 billion supplementary budget passed by Parliament to fund wildfire recovery, AI research and development, public welfare and infrastructure projects. Remarking on the fastest ever passing of extra budget seen in the last 2 decades, he stressed the interim government must not cease to address challenges affecting national interest, such as trade consultations with the United States, economic security, and global competition in key technologies like semiconductors and AI. Until the next government takes office next month, he requested all ministers fulfill their duties until the end, in the face of history. An economist globally renowned for education and innovation policy, the two-time education minister will run a caretaker government until a new president is elected. His responsibilities now span the country's presidency, the Prime Minister's office, and the Finance Ministry. With the Finance Minister's resignation, the cabinet is left with only 14 members, falling short of the 15 required to hold a State Council meeting. However, the Ministry of Government Legislation has ruled that the 15-member requirement refers to positions, not active individuals, and that with 11 or more attendees, the cabinet can lawfully function. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
And as mentioned in that report, Han Duck-soo has declared his intentions to join the presidential race on June 3rd. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young covers this declaration as well as the latest on the election front.
Former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo officially announced his run for president on Friday morning, just 1 day after stepping down as acting president and prime minister.
I just can't accept that even trade and diplomacy, which are vital to our national interest, are being used for political fights. I've decided to find a way to contribute for the future of the Republic of Korea I love, and for all of us.
Han pledged immediate constitutional reform. He laid out a plan to draft an amendment in his first year in office, completed in the second, hold general and presidential elections in the third year under the new constitution, and then step down immediately. He also pledged to tackle trade issues including U.S. tariffs, as well as to work for national unity and support the vulnerable. Han's entry into the race is expected to shake up the People Power Party's primary, now in its final stage, as he is expected to form a coalition with the PPP's final candidate. The PPP will wrap up its 2-day voting on Friday to choose the party's presidential candidate, with results based 50% on party members and 50% on a public opinion poll. Ahead of the party convention on Saturday, where the final candidate will be announced, Kim Moon-soo and Han Dong-un on Friday visited different regions to gather support. Kim focused on the Seoul metropolitan area, while Han visited Busan and Gyeongsang-namdo province. Meanwhile, despite the political fallout from the Supreme Court's decision on his election law violation case, Democratic Party presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung is sticking to his schedule. Lee visited Gangwon-do province to listen to the voices of the people. The Supreme Court on Thursday sent Lee's election law violation case back to the High Court with the intent of a guilty verdict. The DP's election committee on Friday criticized the ruling, calling it an unfair political decision. The National Assembly Legislation and Judiciary Committee, led by members of the DP, decided on Friday to initiate the review of a DP proposed amendment to the Criminal Procedure Act despite opposition from PPP members. The amendment aims to halt legal proceedings once the defendant is elected president. The DP plans to refer the bill to a plenary session next week. 신하영, Arirang News.
In other news, consumer prices continue to hover on the 2% range here in Korea for the fourth month in a row. Park Jun-an covers the findings for this past April.
Inflation in South Korea persists despite low oil prices, spurred by high food and dining out costs. According to data from Statistics Korea on Friday, South Korea's inflation in April stood at 2.1% year-on-year. Consumer prices have been showing increases in the 2% range over the past 4 months. High exchange rates due to the weakening of the Korean won and supply constraints pushed up the prices of processed foods and the cost of dining out. Compared to April last year, prices of processed foods went up by 4.1%. This is the highest level of increase in 16 months. In the same period, the cost of dining out went up by 3.2%. This is the highest level of increase in 13 months. Declining global oil prices eased inflationary pressure as prices of petroleum products fell 1.7%, offsetting earlier gains. An expert from Statistics Korea pointed to the impact of the drop in global oil prices from around $89 per barrel in April last year to around $68 per barrel this April as a reason why further increases in consumer prices did not occur.
The fluctuations in consumer prices were due to a downward shift in petroleum products, due to a decline in global oil prices.
While the rise in the exchange rate contributed to April's inflation and falling global oil prices limited further increases in consumer prices, this data alone does not indicate a long-term economic trend.
Although it used to go up, the exchange rate is falling a lot at the moment. So I think the exchange rate problem will go away sooner or later. About the global oil price issue, oil prices have also dropped a lot recently, but they might go up again. So I don't think the inflation issue is stabilized yet.
Meanwhile, the prices of fresh produce fell by 1.9%, marking the largest drop since March 2022. Despite global uncertainties, an expert from Statistics Korea expects the country's inflation level to remain around 2% in the near future. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
Working-level trade officials from South Korea and the U.S. counterparts have concluded their first technical talks on tariffs in Washington, D.C. Our correspondent Lee Soo-jin has more.
South Korean and U.S. trade officials concluded 2 days of technical discussions on bilateral trade issues on Thursday local time. The discussions, which were held in Washington, marked the first working-level meeting between the South Korean delegation, led by Jang Sung-gil, the Director General for Trade Policy at the Industry Ministry, and their U.S. trade representative counterparts. While the details of the discussions were not disclosed, one source said the meeting's aim was to outline a framework for future full-scale talks. The meeting comes on the heels of last week's so-called 2+2 trade negotiations between Industry Minister An Deok-gun and then Finance Minister Choi Sung-mok with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jameson Geer. During the high-level talks, the two sides agreed to create a trade package aimed at securing tariff exemptions by July 8, the day that a 90-day pause in tariffs set by U.S. President Donald Trump is set to expire. And South Korea is not the only Asian country that the U.S. is holding trade talks with. The second round of tariff negotiations between the U.S. and Japan kicked off on Thursday local time in Washington, attended by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and a delegation led by Japan's Economic Revitalization Minister Rosoi Akazawa. During the meeting, which lasted about an hour longer than the first round, the U.S. and Japan focused on expanding trade, addressing non-tariff measures, and strengthening cooperation on economic security. Bessent emphasized the Trump administration's focus on countries in Asia during an interview on Thursday.
I am concentrating on our Asian trading partners. So we're meeting with the Japanese delegation today. We've had some very good meetings with Korea. So, we are moving quickly.
He also said that trade deals with other Asian countries may take place before China. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy Stephen Miller maintained a firm stance on China during a briefing on Thursday, saying that the U.S. will not tolerate intellectual property theft or mounting trade deficits. He also said the trade deficit in auto trade between the U.S. and South Korea, Japan, and the European Union was, quote, unsustainable under fair trade conditions. 이수진, Arirang News.
Hyundai Motor and Kia Corporation have reported record sales in the U.S. market in April, marking a seventh straight month of growth. Company officials say Hyundai saw its sales soar 19% on year last month to hit 81,503 units. Kia, for its part, posted a 14% on-year jump to reach 74,805 units. This latest stellar performance is being linked to the two car makers' SUV models and their eco-friendly vehicles. In fact, Hyundai's hybrid models marked a 46% rise, while Kia's hybrid sales were up 21%. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has shared his vote of confidence in the recently sealed critical minerals deal with the U.S. Our Ian Jin covers his remarks and more.
After months of negotiations, the U.S. and Ukraine have signed a minerals deal. Ukraine's cabinet of ministers released the final agreement on Thursday, which was signed the day before. Ukrainian officials said it is far more beneficial to Ukraine than previous versions, which were viewed by many to be exploitative. Promoted by U.S. President Donald Trump, the deal gives the United States preferential access to Ukrainian minerals, including rare earth elements, while setting up an investment fund that will contribute to Ukraine's reconstruction.
It's important to say what it's not, because early on there were some agreements put under the nose of the Ukrainians that pretty much took away their sovereignty, if you will, over their minerals and this type of thing. It was a bit of an extortion that looked like that for a lot of people. And so the Ukrainians pushed back, and Zelenskyy pushed back.
The agreement does not provide for any debt obligations, meaning Washington may have made a concession on Trump's demand that Ukraine pay back the $350 billion of aid that he claims has been provided by the U.S. during the war. Though the agreement doesn't provide concrete security guarantees to Ukraine, it does affirm a long-term strategic alignment between the two countries and a tangible demonstration of the United States of America's support for Ukraine's security, prosperity, reconstruction, and integration into global economic frameworks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said the deal was truly historic.
The agreement has changed significantly during the preparation process. It is now truly an equitable agreement, one that creates opportunities for substantial investment in Ukraine. The agreement does not recognize any debt, and a fund is being set up, a reconstruction fund that will invest in Ukraine and generate returns here.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin has remained silent on the agreement, but former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said Trump had broken the Kiev regime because Ukraine would have to pay for U.S. military aid with mineral resources, which he called national wealth of a disappearing country. And a former Kremlin advisor suggested that the deal has made it harder for the war to end through peace talks. Since the signing of the deal, authorities have reported that a Ukrainian drone attack has killed at least 7 people in the Kherson region, and a Russian drone attack on Odessa has killed 2 people. The Ukrainian parliament still needs to ratify the latest agreement for it to come into effect. It could be voted on during parliamentary sessions between May 13th and 15th if all procedures can be completed in time. 이은진, Arirang News.
South Korea and the U.S. held their first tabletop exercise against space-based security threats posed by North Korea. The exercise between the Joint Chiefs of Staff and U.S. Space Forces Korea took place on Thursday and included response simulations to potential North Korean attacks against South Korean satellites, such as GPS jamming. This tabletop training follows working-level talks on space partnership held in Washington, D.C. last November. And the Unification Ministry here has shared its latest settlement support plan for North Korean defectors. The plan expands academic opportunities for the children of defectors and offers tax incentives to businesses that hire defectors. It also strengthens safety nets for the elderly and working mothers. Seeking to build upon last year's framework, the plan focuses on job creation and talent development, aimed at giving defectors the chance to gain a firm foothold here in South Korea. Now, a while back, we covered an elaborate reenactment of a centuries-old diplomatic mission that begins here in Korea and ends in Japan. Well, that mission is now reenacting its trip to the neighboring country, having set sail from Busan earlier this week. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin files this report.
The final stop on Korean soil for the Joseon Tongsinsa, Korea's diplomatic missions to Japan during the 17th to 19th centuries, was the port city of Busan. After arriving from Seoul, hundreds of envoys boarded ships bound for Japan. Every year, this historic moment is revived through the Joseon Tongsinsa festival. Dressed in traditional Korean attire, hundreds of participants marched through Busan, retracing the footsteps of the original envoys.
It's my first time participating, but it really made me reflect more deeply on Korea's relationship with Japan, such as the colonial era.
When I filled the form for this event, I did look it up, and it was a good historical piece that I got to know. Yeah.
And completing the recreation, the Tongsinsa ship has also been meticulously brought back to life. So this is a vessel that was modeled after the original Tongsinsa ship setting sail for Japan. By mid-May, it will arrive in its final destination, Osaka. This marks the first time in 261 years that the route to Osaka is being taken. The man behind this reconstruction is Hong Sun-jae, who has spent a decade bringing the historic vessel back to life. Since 2015, he's collected historical documents, studied ancient ship models, and traveled across the country to find the right timber. The ship launched in 2018, made its first voyage to Japan in 2023, and this year it's heading farther than ever before.
This year marks 60 years since South Korea and Japan normalized diplomatic ties. Our ship will hold an arrival ceremony in Osaka on May 13th, Korea Day at the Osaka World Expo. Through this journey, we hope to promote peace and remind people that our two countries share a long history of connection, not just conflict.
Having departed from Busan on April 28th, the ship will visit multiple ports in Japan, hosting exhibitions and performances, just as the Joseon Tongsinsa envoys did centuries ago to share Korean culture. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, Busan.
And starting tomorrow, for those of us here in Korea, we are looking ahead to a long weekend to celebrate Children's Day and Buddha's birthday. That being said, if you have yet to make plans, do consider a meaningful exhibition here in central Seoul to mark the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation. Our Iuni was there.
This year marks the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation, when Korea regained independence from Japan in 1945 after 35 years of colonial rule. To mark the anniversary and to show the daily lives of people during the colonial rule and other moments of Korea's recent history, the National Museum of Korean Contemporary History is holding a special exhibition called Records, Memory of You. The displays, including official documents, diaries, and literary works, show more than just historical facts. They reveal the human emotions of the time, hope, sorrow, and joy, so we can experience Korea's journey through the eyes of those who lived it. This young soldier, Unable to write to his illiterate father, asked a journalist to take his photo to let him know he was alive. Tragically, he was killed in action the very next day. And this stack of letters was exchanged between a couple separated by the Vietnam War, offering a glimpse into their hope to be reunited. Korea's struggle and pride are reflected in key moments in sports history. From the 1936 Berlin Olympics, where a Korean athlete won gold in the marathon but had to stand under the Japanese flag, to the nation's first international sports victory after liberation, and its Olympics debut under the name Korea. These milestones capture the resilience and determination of a country reclaiming its identity.
Even though it was a time we never lived through, seeing over 80 years since Korea's first Olympics appearance made me feel how far our country has come, and also gave me a strange nostalgic feeling, like I had been part of it.
I wanted to come to South Korea, to Republic of Korea, and visit and learn more about the history and art and culture of the country. So this is actually my first stop. I arrived this morning, so I'm very happy to be here, and I find the exhibit to be fascinating and very emotional, actually, because it talks about the history of of what has happened in the recent past.
Held in collaboration with the Cheongju National Museum and the National Archives of Korea, the exhibition reminds us of the meaning of Gwangbok in Korean, meaning the restoration of lost sovereignty, and the importance of never forgetting those historic struggles. 이은희, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. U.S. President Donald Trump has removed National Security Advisor Mike Waltz following a security breach and named Secretary of State Marco Rubio his interim replacement. As part of the reshuffle, Trump has nominated Waltz as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. President Trump's decision was announced on Thursday local time. This comes after Waltz mistakenly added journalist Jeffrey Goldberg to a group chat of top officials discussing classified U.S. military operations in Yemen. While an internal review concluded the breach was accidental, the incident intensified tensions between Waltz and other officials over his hawkish foreign policy views. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been appointed as acting national security advisor, adding to his current roles as Secretary of State, acting administrator for the United States Agency for International Development, and U.S. archivist. The Senate must now confirm Waltz's nomination as UN ambassador. Parts of Northwest Europe are experiencing an unprecedented heat wave, with multiple countries recording their highest temperatures at the start of May. The United Kingdom saw its hottest start to May since records began on Thursday, with temperatures reaching 29.3 degrees Celsius at Kew Gardens in London, according to the Met Office. This surpasses the previous record of 27.4 degrees Celsius, set in 1990. Elsewhere in Europe, cities including Paris and Berlin have also experienced unseasonably warm weather, with temperatures reaching 29 and 27 degrees Celsius respectively. The early onset of such high temperatures raised concerns about the frequency and intensity of future heat waves in the region. In Brazil, Sister Ina Canabahu Lucas, recognized as the world's oldest person, has died at the age of 116. Sister Ina passed away on April 30th in Porto Alegre due to natural causes. Born in 1908, Lucas became a Catholic nun in her early 20s and devoted her life to religious services and teaching. She joined the Teresian Sisters religious community in 1927 and spent decades educating students. Sister Ina was blessed by the late Pope Francis in 2018. She attributed her longevity to her faith, saying that he's the secret of life. With her passing, 115-year-old Ethel Caterham in England now holds the title of oldest living person. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
It stayed relatively cool even in the middle of the day today. The daytime temperature in Seoul rose to 20 degrees Celsius and 22 degrees in Daegu, which was about 2 to 3 degrees lower than the usual temperature at this time of year. Temperatures will move down a bit with the rain tomorrow. There is frequent rain in the forecast during this extended weekend. Following tomorrow, it will rain across the country next Monday night and continue until Tuesday. Rain will begin in the central parts of the country early tomorrow and gradually spread to the whole country. These rain clouds won't stay long and will slowly recede during the daytime. Tomorrow's Seoul and Daejeon will start off at 9 degrees, Gyeongju at 10 degrees. Daily highs will rise up to 16 to 18 degrees nationwide, except for Jeju at 23 degrees. Mild conditions with rain are expected until early next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Right, those are the headlines at this hour. Our panel session is coming up next.
제21대 대통령 재외선거.
세계 어느 곳에 있어도
내가 국가대표라는 마음으로
누구보다 땀 흘리죠.
지금이 국가대표임을
보여줄 기회.
대한민국 국민의 권리.
대한민국 국민의 의무.
반드시
투표합니다. 국가를 위한 대통령 투표. 제21대 대통령 재외선거. 중앙선거관리위원회.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
YouTube turned 20 years old this year, and on Press Perspective today, we take a look at this video platform's role in promoting the Korean wave and more. Hello and welcome to Press Perspective. It's Friday, May 2nd here in Seoul, and time for our talk on a host of headlines related to social and entertainment news. For this, I have writer Colin Marshall here in the studio. Colin, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
I also have Mariana Baroli, a journalist for the weekly Italian news magazine Panorama. It's a pleasure, Mariana, to have you here.
Thank you for having me back.
Right, Colin, we will start with you. So YouTube, as I mentioned in the short clip at the start of this talk, turned 20 this year, and Psy's Gangnam Style, as well as Pinkfong's version of Baby Shark, were listed among the biggest moments of YouTube. Do tell us more about that.
Yes, the New York Times published this list of YouTube's famous moments we all remember. If you're of my generation, you certainly do. You know, the kid coming back from the dentist all high, or Charlie bit my finger, or chocolate rain, or any of these viral videos, or viral videos before we even knew to call them viral videos. I mean, when YouTube launched in 2005, it was interesting because there wasn't really any way, I mean, younger people won't know, there wasn't really much of a way to see videos on demand, to just pull up videos people had made or to share your own videos. And early on, it was like people were posting, old cartoons we remembered, or finding what content was going to work on YouTube took some time. But it soon took shape, and it soon became the cultural platform worldwide, I would say. It's probably the most important one, or has been the most important one, at least for the past decade or so. And as you mentioned, several of these moments, I would say disproportionately, are Korea-related in the history of YouTube. So one example, you mentioned Baby Shark, which is this children's song, originally a song sung in sort of American summer camps that was then made into a video by this company, Smart Study. It makes educational content and became viral as a children's video. Children's YouTube being a whole other side of YouTube that I'm not a parent yet, I soon will be, and I know I'll be exposed to that world fairly soon. But if you go big on children's YouTube, you go very big. And I didn't even know Baby Shark was Korean for a long time. It became viral, became this whole thing, but I didn't have a reason to encounter it. Still, you watch it today and you compare it to children's YouTube now, and it seems like Shakespeare compared to, say, Cocomelon or any of the total brain-melting content out there. But Gangnam Style, of course, is really the big Korean moment on YouTube. It was a huge viral video, the hugest viral video ever at that point. And I think it came through the Philippines, really. It wasn't so much that it came straight out from Korea to the world, as it was shared in the Philippines. There have been studies about the sort of internet traffic patterns of Gangnam Style, and from the Philippines spread throughout the world. And even viewers who have no interest in Korea, no awareness of Korea, watched Gangnam Style and they couldn't believe their eyes. I remember seeing one novelist give a talk just a couple of years later, and he was saying, "Do you remember when you first saw Gangnam Style? I felt like I was high." It was like this video that altered your consciousness, and it was so silly to people in a way that they'd never understood before or seen before. And I myself, on the 10-year anniversary of Gangnam Style, wrote a piece for The New Yorker looking back on its sort of legacy and what it was satirizing as well. Like, we know what Gangnam is here, and I think there is some awareness of Gangnam because of Gangnam Style, but it's still not quite well understood what Psy is satirizing. So if you want to understand that, it can be a sort of window into Korea. Like, he's making fun of something specific about Korean culture, especially modern Korean culture. And if you dig into that, you can learn a lot about this society. But I mean, there are other moments too that are Korea-related. One of them, I'll mention finally, Mr. Beast, I think one of the biggest, maybe the biggest YouTuber working right now. His biggest video, and that's a high bar, by the way, because he gets so many views, his videos are engineered to be viral. Every video goes viral. His most viral video was a recreation of Squid Game. Squid Game in real life, he calls it, where he got contestants together to play Squid Game-like games, like simulating the challenges. And Squid Game itself, as we know, was huge. But when Mr. Beast does a Squid Game video, this is just like, it can only go huge. And so it did. But I think we haven't seen the last Korea-related big YouTube booming video. I mean, there are more to come, I'm sure.
Right, for sure. As Colin mentioned, Mariana, YouTube has been playing quite a big role in taking Korean content onto the global stage. That being said, what more can you tell us about YouTube's role in promoting the Korean wave on the international stage?
I think it was a powerful engine, actually. As Colin said, everything that goes through YouTube, it's a cultural phenomenon and gives us unexpected new views on a new world, actually. And from Psy, as you mentioned, the Baby Shark to BTS, that at first they didn't rely on Western media to promote themselves abroad. So I think that YouTube gave access 24 hours to 7 days a week to some content that nobody knows actually in the Western side of the world. And now everyone can enjoy K-drama, K-beauty, K-pop, K-food, everything connected to Korea and to this beautiful side of the world, and no more and no better. And probably during COVID, we had a huge push thanks to YouTube. We were stuck in our home, so the only thing we could do was like consuming videos and, you know, dream to fly to somewhere else in the world and experience some other type of life. And I think that Hallyu probably wouldn't be so huge right now without YouTube as well, because YouTube played a really crucial role into growing the Hallyu wave in the Western side of the world, especially Europe probably.
Right. Beyond the Korean wave then, Colin, as you mentioned earlier, YouTube itself, the platform, it appears to have strengthened its standing, if I may, among content creators. Tell us more about this reality.
Right, it's YouTube videos are themselves a cultural form now. As I mentioned, when YouTube came out, there was some. Whenever any platform comes out, it's like, what are we going to do with this? What do we put here? I'm not sure. Can we upload? We can't upload a movie because they're copyright protected, so they'll get taken down. Like, I could make my own video, but who wants to watch? You know, at that time, who wants to watch some person just talking? No one wants to see amateur content. You know, that was wrong, of course. But I mentioned Mr. Beast, the biggest YouTuber, probably, certainly among young people. And I am not his target audience. I've seen exactly one of his videos, and I was not compelled to see more. But he has engineered his videos to maximize the qualities of the, how to put it, to use the qualities of YouTube, the YouTube video as a medium. He had this sort of mission statement / manifesto / manual at his company that leaked out like a year or two ago. And it's for new recruits to Mr. Beast Incorporated or whatever it is. And he starts by saying something memorable, I thought. He's saying, we're not in the business of making the best TV shows. We're not in the business of making the best movies. Those wouldn't succeed on YouTube. Like, if the most critically acclaimed movie ever would fail on YouTube, we're in the business of making the best YouTube videos. And so he shows you what a YouTube video is. You know, it has an intriguing concept, like we did Squid Game in real life. You know, it holds your attention. It's about 20 minutes long. And there are certain tropes if you watch his videos or other big creators. You find this is kind of the downside of YouTube, is that the algorithm or the algorithms in play, they favor certain types of content at any given point in time. It keeps changing, and suddenly, like, every creator who's astute about writing the algorithm changes to suit it. And so, like, if you like travel videos, and I sometimes look up what Korea travel videos people are making, at any given point in time, they're kind of all doing the same thing in the same way. You know, there's a lot of tropes, you know, hey guys, here I am in Gwangjang Market, let's get some tteokbokki, you know. So there is a certain convergence, certain redundancy to a lot of the content there, because people are, at any given point, creators at any given point are going sort of down the same path to virality, or to try to retain their audience. Audience retention is a big metric on YouTube. So on the whole, though, it's opened up a whole vast cultural universe, and every day I see things I could never have seen anywhere else. For language learning alone, like finding content in other languages, I never would have had access to if it weren't for YouTube. So like all technologies, it's, you know, 51% good. I think the good outweighs the bad, but you get a lot of dreck, as they say, comes along with it, unfortunately, but no platform is perfect.
Right, and speaking about the languages on YouTube, Mariana, the YouTube's auto-translate feature, it can translate captions into the language of your choice. What does that mean for non-English content, do you think?
I think it's a huge game changer, but we need to use it very carefully, because even if Korean is a beautiful language, as every language is like signatures and nuances, and it's good to know that you can relate to auto-translation, but you need to think about, also look at what you're watching, you know? Just look it deeper other than what you're reading behind that. I'm thinking, for example, to variety show, Korean variety show. When you look at that with auto-translated caption, obviously it helps out reading and understanding what they're saying and laughing with them and things like that. But sometimes we miss the point, you know. So, and I know that I think that in a world that's moving so fast right now, and everyone that's interested in the Hallyu wave and Korean entertainment, especially, knows some kind of languages or words or like key sentences, can understand that when the auto-translation's gone wrong, and that can be a pity because, you know, people can get very upset. They're ruining basically the show, doing a bad translation. Bad translation is one of the biggest problems right now, I think, in this kind of world that's moving so fast, but still is so slow in this kind of learning languages phase. So I think it's, so from one side is a true game changer, but we need to rely on it very, very carefully. I think that consuming things in English, with English subtitles, it's always the best choice.
Right, for sure, for sure. Marianne, meanwhile, in recent times, there have been tangible signs that neighboring China may be slowly embracing the Korean wave again. What have been some of the signs that you've been witnessing?
Oh, well, I think IPEC's concert is going to be a huge step forward with the relationship with China.
Their concert in China, it's the first one in almost 10 years, is it?
Yes, and nobody before was able to do that. No BTS, no Blackpink, nobody. And just think of Crash Landing on You. It was banned from the country, and now we have this group, which is a great group, and I know they're going to perform in an incredible way. This is going to be historical because, you know, it's something very, very meaningful, but we need to be cautious because I always think that when it comes to political relationship, we need to rely on K-pop, yeah, but not put all the pressure on the boys or the girls that are going to perform because they're just performers and they're doing great. They will do great. They're going to sign a very important step for South Korea and the relationship with China, but we don't need to put pressure on them for whatever is going to happen next.
All right. Marianne, this is an impromptu question. I am aware that you're probably one of the first, is it, Italian journalists to take K-pop to the Italian audience. Yes. What are some of these stories about K-pop that your audience is interested at the moment? At the moment, they want to know more about new groups, but there is a rising interest in old groups as well. For example, yesterday night I was invited to the Seoul Festa, the Wonder Show, and the Gov't were playing, and everyone was so excited, and I ran a small questionnaire on my social media channels, and everyone was like, oh, we need to see Gov't live. Everyone wants to see old K-pop and wants to know more, and that's the best thing for me because, you know, everyone is great, but knowing the roots is always important. So interviews is still my main focus actually on K-pop, but I will try to do from here as much as I can. Right, good to know, good to know. Colin, moving forward now, starting tomorrow, we are looking ahead to a long weekend, Colin. We are celebrating Children's Day as well as Buddha's birthday. Initially, there was actually talk about making today, that is Friday, a temporary holiday to allow Koreans a longer time to enjoy leisure activities in hopes that they will boost domestic consumption. But this idea was scrapped when findings show that Koreans prefer to travel overseas when they have a longer than expected holiday than travel here in the country. What do you suppose is perhaps discouraging Koreans from travel within national borders? Yes, there have been some articles recently about the sort of lower profits, the lower sort of number of entrances that tourism sites around the country have had in recent years. And usually this sort of story is associated with holidays like Chuseok and Solal. And in those cases, you have some Koreans who say,
it's better to travel outside the country during those holidays, because otherwise you're subject to various family obligations. You have to go to someone's house across the country, and getting across the country is not that easy at those times. So it's like better just to say, I'm going to be in Malaysia or whatever it is at that time, and you're out of the commitments you might have otherwise been subject to. But as well, I mean, I think if an American hears this story, they think, oh, are Koreans really so rich that they're just on a long weekend doing international travel? And it's not so much that as that the other countries are close by. They're not necessarily traveling to Europe. They might be going to Japan. They might be going to Taiwan. There are a number of countries in Asia, or parts of countries, Kota Kinabalu, and I think Malaysia has been, I never heard of the place before coming to Korea, but it's big. Or Vietnam is a huge destination. So it's typically travel within Asia. And we mentioned YouTube, which is a quasi form of social media, but the rise and dominance of visual social media in Korea also incentivizes going someplace that you can show and that stands out as being different. When your friends scroll through, if they see you in sort of Gyeongju, it's fine, but if they see you in a place that's obviously foreign, that looks more exotic, if they see you in, Sapporo or somewhere, then it stands out and you'll have more likes, and you'll just, you feel a little bit better if your thing is social media. But there's been criticism even in the Korean press of what might be wrong with the local or the domestic destinations. And it's not so much really that anything's wrong as that they've evolved in a very similar way. So, if you go to a new city in Korea, often it's like, oh, you got to ride the cable car. So they all have one of those. Go to the tower. Many have one of the towers. You should go. I mean, I like traditional markets, Shijang, and they are different from each other, but they don't necessarily feel different on first glance. Or it's like we have, rail bikes became big. Like when one form of attraction gets popular in one place in Korea, it quickly spreads to all the other places, regardless of suitability. And so I think there is a sort of sameness Koreans feel about destinations in their own country. And of course, for a long time, Jeju Island was the place to go, whether it was a honeymoon or the place you could go. I mean, there was no other choice. But now, if you're going to get on a plane, you might as well, the thinking goes, take the extra half hour, the extra hour, and go to another country, because now it's easy. Before 1989, of course, you couldn't do it at all unless you had an invitation. So I think there's still almost an excitement. There's still a novelty about free, as in like unrestricted international travel that Koreans are enjoying, even if they were born into the country with that condition already in place.
Right, and while Koreans choose to fly overseas, Mariana, fortunately, quite a number of foreign travelers are choosing to visit the country. Now, I understand your first visit here was after the pandemic, because initially you planned to come in the year 2020, but was put off.
Exactly.
What were your initial impressions of Korea?
Actually, I was like kind of shocked because it's crazy similar to Italy in some way. So I was like, where I am, I'm actually at home, because I live in Milan. So the city is not the same, but it has the same vibe, except for here is way safer, and I can go out at night alone without worrying about being robbed, touched, or like something bad happens to me. And I can always find food or something to do, even at night, and that's the main difference. But I was shocked actually from how similar the two cities were. But I can totally understand why people is now traveling to Korea, because we're exposed to Korean content 24/7 actually. Korea is everywhere in the world thanks to K-beauty, K-food. And in Milan, we have, I think, over 30 Korean restaurants right now and a lot of Korean beauty shop. So I can totally understand people romanticizing the fact of going actually in the actual land where everything is born. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons people is traveling here right now. They want to know more, and they want to live this kind of cinematic, romantic experience in Korea, like, oh, I saw this K-drama, so I want to walk the same step as my favorite character, or I want to go to that cafe and experience the same thing, or I want to go to, I don't know, I'm thinking of one of the Korean drama where you see, I don't know, the lake or the Lotte World, and people is like, oh, I want to experience that. I want to dress up as a high school student again. And schooling is kind of tricky in Italy, you know, it's something you don't want to repeat, I think, everywhere in the world. But then you're willing to come to South Korea and dress up as a school student and go to a lot of the world and fake with a relationship maybe with your friend or your best friend just to, you know, live the romantic experience. So I think that and cafes and the beauty routines and the beauty clinic and the tech also is, everything is very romanticized and very cinematic and very interesting.
Was there a specific experience that you wanted to experience here in Korea?
I just want to walk down the street, you know? Just, yeah, see the cars, see the lights, see everything feel the city. That was my main experience. I always try to avoid doing touristic things when I travel, because I always say that when I do something very touristic, like for example, I've been here, this is my 8th time, and I've never been on the Namsan Tower, for example. Because every time I say, if I start doing that kind of things, it means I'm not going back. So I always try to keep something like left behind, and I'm like, okay, next time. So, you know, I always have a reason to come back. And I think that's one of the reasons some people do. I know a lot of Italians does the same.
And I wonder, Colin, have you been to Namsan Tower as a resident?
I have, but
here?
it took me a few years.
Yeah,
I didn't go right away. I've never been a tourist here, but it took me a while.
All right. Now, Colin, what perhaps, as a resident here, as a foreign resident here in South Korea, what are the aspects perhaps that need to be addressed to better accommodate foreign guests here in South Korea?
I think what Mariana said, it exemplifies what I was thinking about on that subject, which is that not all visitors want to go to tourist sites. Many do, but especially among Westerners, Americans, Europeans, there is a sense like, okay, I don't want to see the 5 or 6 popular spots everyone goes to, everybody's taking photos at, that I feel like I'm directed to by the official guides. I want to see the real Korea, and that's a phrase you hear a lot. I've heard a lot from visiting friends, and I think a lot of times this conflicts with the priorities of what I think of as official Korea. Like, in that mindset, you should see the palace, and it should be a pristine-looking, clean palace. Like it should be a palace that looks exactly like it did 500 years ago, but everything is new. And that's kind of strange to a visiting, especially to a European, I would imagine. Like, it's old, but it doesn't feel old. And you know, I was talking to an American last night, asking where are the best heritage sites to visit, and I kept thinking, well, a lot of them are interesting, but many of them feel like reconstructions because they are. I think that acknowledging that a lot of visitors just want to explore for themselves. You can kind of nudge them toward things, but they want to feel like they're discovering for themselves, not being led by the hand to like, oh, look at this palace, and without any context. Oftentimes they don't have the historical understanding yet to know why this palace is there or what it did. So, you know, promoting tourist traps can hurt more than it helps in some cases. But yeah, you want to feel like, you want to give especially Westerners a sense they're seeing Korea that's undiscovered. And I mean, they too are posting to their social media a lot of times. So, you know, maybe the neighborhoods that many times Koreans feel like in Seoul, oh, I don't want foreigners to see that neighborhood. That's the neighborhood they do want to see because it feels real. It's actually old. Everybody there is local. You know, sometimes the people are old. Sometimes, oh, it's too noisy. The Koreans might say, well, they want to hear the noise. They want to feel like they're in a Korean TV show or movie sometimes, and that's not necessarily accomplished by going to the newest, cleanest, most Western-like places.
Definitely something to think about, Colin. Right, thank you so much for your insights, Colin, today as well. And Mariana, all the way from Italy, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today.
Thank you for having me, really.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Right. Well, that is all from us this week. We return on Wednesday after the long weekend holiday. Have a great rest.